before the Milimani Law Courts on January 31st, 2024. The court detained him pending extradition to the United States. Exactly 1 week later, John Maina Ndegwa, who identifies himself as Kangethe's lawyer, requests to speak with the suspect at the Muthaiga police station. Officers agrees to the lawyer's request and escort Kangethe from the cells to the anti-crime office number 3. It is during this interaction that Kangethe managed to escape, leaving the lawyer behind. The station commander, Esther Mushomba, on the other side, was conducting a meeting with the anti-crime personnel and inspectorate members. Following the incident, several police officers have recorded statements regarding the escape. They include Cell Sentry Elijah Kipkiror, reporting personnel James Maina, station guards Ann Wanjiko and Abdi Hassan Saman. The suspect's lawyer John Maina Ndegwa has also been questioned. The escape has left many Kenyans with questions regarding the escape. Are there measures at the police station to prevent escape by those being held there? Is it possible for anyone to walk out of their cell to freedom? We visited the police station to find out the possibility of any remandee escaping. The gate at the time of the visit was manned, the fence showing no gaps where one can escape. At the end tail of the police station compound is another fence. Directly opposite is a CCTV camera with one facing the station. Could the extradition to US proceedings have influenced security protocols? Will this case prompt a review of extradition procedure and detainee handling? Authorities are intensifying efforts to locate and apprehend the fugitive in order to serve justice for the killing of Margaret Mbito in the United States.
Now, questions continue to linger within this police station. How a suspect or a murder suspect who is currently on the run would escape from these cells, and in a full glare of police officers who man the gate and inside the cells left the station unnoticed. Who is to blame? Ode Francis, KTN News, Muthaiga, Nairobi.
And this is what has been captured by Victor today in the Star, looking at our prisons there. The police service, you can see that the service is in quotes there. Extradition suspect escapes from custody, and you can see that particular door. It's so easy actually to escape. It's just made everyone, giving them a very narrow escape, so to speak. That is today's editorial cartoon. Also, what we'll be discussing and a lot of other things as far as SHIF, I need to come slowly there, Haiti and also housing fund is concerned. And you can see the Attorney General also is on the spot regarding this, all these slaps that we've had from the courts lately, halting some of these policy shifts. That is their start this morning. And campaign promises, financial constraints. The only way is to pay more taxes. That is the wheelbarrow. You can see it was a very quintessential symbol for the UDA, but it seems now it will be carrying more of the taxes than the goodies that Kenyans were expecting as far as the new administration is concerned. As I mentioned, we are holding court with Dr. Martin Olo, who's an advocate of High Court, Kipruto Arap Kirwa, who's a governance and policy analyst. Also, we are joined by Dr. Barak Muluka, who is a senior strategic communications advisor, and also we are joined by Dr. Oliver Kisaka, who is the CEO of Christian Organization Research and Advisory Trust of Africa, that is CORAT, and we'll be, of course, looking at a raft of issues today. But let's just begin with this editorial cartoon, if my director may just put it up there, because it's holding a lot of things that we want to discuss. The Attorney General and SHIF, we just ran by you the story of SHIF, that it is mandatory for everyone of us here included. Within 3 months, we should have registered. And I think the registration has been a bone of contention. All right? If I don't register with these services, why should I be starkly denied services from government institutions? Let's just begin with you, Martin Olo.
No, first of all, good morning, and it's nice to see all of us here. And I want to say this very deliberately, Dr. Barak Muluka, Dr. Oliver Kisaka, And okay, so
this pressure is meant to.
It's coming to bear on Dr. Kipruto Arap Kirwa.
But he's a good friend of mine, and he has told me he's working very hard. Now, back to the topic, really. This country does not stop amazing. We seem to be on a roll. It's like we have no money problems. Is the registration process in SHIF really necessary? Are we not having biometrics of Kenyans who are above 18? Don't they have identity cards? Haven't we taken these biometrics before through the Huduma process and so on? So what would be the need to do a fresh registration of all Kenyans above 18 years? Don't we have that data as government? So basically, before we make policies that increase our public expenditure and just burden Kenyans for no reason, we should rethink them. Is it something that you want to do at the point of service, or is it something that you want people to queue like that world coin things where people are all in town trying to have their, whatever it was that
the iris,
yeah. So we have to get serious with ourselves, get serious with our public affairs, and do not burden Kenyans unnecessarily. Why should I stop doing economic activities, doing things that will make this country more productive, to go and queue in a Huduma center, to go and do things that the government can come to me? Why can't we ask government to go to people and register them, if at all they don't have my information? But I believe they do. If you ask Safaricom, we have given them our identity cards. That's why we have these numbers. So there is nowhere you can say we have no information. It only points out to one thing, that perhaps we do not have a coordinated central data that we are using to know who Kenyans are. So I would say that this is absolutely unnecessary. It's a burden the Kenyans don't need to carry, and you can still migrate even the data that is already with NHIF. Migrate that data and say, okay, Barack, you don't have to come, Honorable Kiro, you don't have to come, and so on. But the others that are younger, getting IDs, come do it. Or at the point at which you are registering people for IDs and so on, make sure that you capture biometrics that can be used at any other point. Indeed, when you're looking at passports, biometrics, so at every corner you turn,
these data.
We seem to have data, but every time we want to do anything in this country, we seem to suggest that we don't have data.
Right.
Now, we've said that unless we are actually, unless we look at ourselves and say, public expenditure has to be controlled, has to be cut. Anything that's unnecessarily going to increase our expenditure should be rethought, should be relooked at. As it is, we are borrowing to pay debts. You're taking a debt to pay a debt. No, that means that you must cut something, get back a little bit, and say, we want to have a fresh start.
Fresh starts. So let me come to you, Kipruto Arap Kirwa, because now a government that is intent on paring down on expenditure, if you're calling out another exercise for registration, isn't that also trying to open another pass for that expenditure, that you want to capture this data that we have Martin Olo talking about? First, we should be told what happened with the data that they collected for Huduma number, first of all. So we need accountability on that. Many Kenyans were, stopped in the engagements to go for the registration. We were given a slip. I don't know even where my slip is. I don't know if you still have yours.
I have the card, by the way.
You have it.
Okay, I got the card.
You got the card,
yeah,
right?
Yes.
Other people never got the cards. I don't know if Barack or Dr. Oliver Kisaka, you got the cards. You never did get it. No one really called you. There was no follow-up completely. Yes.
I got the slip. I put it somewhere in my wallet. And because I don't carry a lot of cash nowadays, it's still safe in my wallet. I've not gotten any feedback because I expected that they will ask me for that slip when I go for the final card. I think it is important for this regime to improve communication. Their major downfall is communication and coordination of events within government. This information, as has been well explained by Dr. Martin Olo, is supposed to be somewhere, domiciled somewhere. You have information about my ID, my driving license, my birth certificate, my passport, and many other areas that we register, and the biometrics you've been taking almost every other time. What I do suspect, and this is what worries me most, is that for every new registration exercise, it is replete with corruption. And therefore, we are opening more avenues for corruption, and also for delay in terms of time. Any time spent queuing for any registration or any access to certification of some kind is time that we would have spent building our economy. So it worries me, and it should actually be worried to the government that, yes, why don't we collect this information so that we don't have to worry people. What we need to do is to say, okay, these are people, key on a certain number. And if you don't see your number or whatever response, then you now go register. So that those who already are in the database, you do not have to spend time going again to register. That is the essence of IT. And this regime has been promoting the use of IT,
the digital
especially
economy.
the Minister for
ICT.
Mm-hmm. And I think that should be the calling point, that yes, if you key in this number, and or you key in your ID number and the response does not come this way, know that you've not been registered, and the next thing is to be registered. Or you can use certain steps to get to registration, the way other operations are done within the IT sector. So I feel nobody is assisting the regime to improve communication, or the regime is not listening to any professional. Because the last time I knew, when you're in government, there are enough people to advise you. But as they say, advice is as good as the recipient. There may be nobody to receive the advice that gets from the experts in all ministries. I can assure you, we have enough Kenyans well-trained with requisite experience, and they are willing to work. But at times, the leaders don't give them time to listen to them.
All right. Barak Maluka, when we hear also Kipruto Rapkiro talking about communications, strategic communication seems also to be what the government really need to scratch, and they're not really up to scratch as far as efficient communication is concerned on this. So do you hold with the view that this is just a duplication of work that has been done before, and we should not go full steam ahead and go for this exercise? They have all the data they need, the birth certificate registrations also from the hospitals.
I think there's a fundamental problem there, as the two panelists have already pointed out. And if we use the angle of communication as the gateway, you can see that there's this rolling out of projects without sufficient engagement of the public, even at the level of rationalizing and explaining why the government is taking certain avenues, certain courses of action. You have seen the government spokesperson on TV this morning telling people that this must be done, and it's going to be done. It doesn't matter what the detractors say. And you see, there's need for engagement rather than confrontation. If you are talking about, for instance, all payments being made through eCitizen, is it possible that you could explain to the public why it is necessary to go that way without sounding draconian? Is it possible that you may even want to do a pilot like this one of school fees being paid through the eCitizen platform, the same number, I think it's 222 several times? Is it possible that you could experiment with a few schools, with a few institutions, get people to understand and to appreciate and to be on your side as government rather than to look at everybody as an adversary? Dr. Olo is spot on when he talks about migration, and I think Kirwa has also, Mheshimiwa Kirwa has also touched on the same point, that in this digital age, and government is talking about digitalization of government services and digitization of government records. Is it possible in this digital age that one can migrate these things seamlessly without asking people to once again queue up? Because we are talking of a population of how many millions? We've got a population of probably 47, 48 million Kenyans, out of whom the principal SHIF registered card holders or NHIF card holders today would be anywhere in the range of perhaps even 10 million. But behind each of these 10 million, you must list the rest. And how long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? Has it been rationalized even internally? One keeps on getting the impression that a lot of these are knee-jerk activities, that someone just sits and says, I think this is good, we should do it this way. And everybody else around seems to agree and say, yes, let us go that way. I get increasingly the impression that at the center of government, whatever that may mean, but at the heart of government, there must be only one source of direction. And that those who sit in various concentric circles around that center do not have the ability to intervene, to advise, to suggest, and therefore you end up with what one may, in the interest of politeness, call a one-person platform of running the country and running the institutions, in which case you don't need the rest of the institutions. And when you are there, I think you must advise. And if you are advised, and we've seen the Attorney General coming out a few days ago and saying, I've not been consulted, I've not been part of some of these meetings where these decisions
Indeed.
have been made. And I think that's very dangerous.
Very dangerous. Still on housing levy, he's also expressed that frustration as well. Let's hear from Dr. Oliver Kisaka. Good to see you. Happy felicitation for the new year. Still New Year, still February. Maybe until March, then we can lose the New Year tag.
Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year to you.
Yes, I appreciate what my colleagues are saying. I think the impression one gets is that a very serious warfare arose in the last regime, and that the Kenyan way. I have found myself. Let me begin by saying I have found myself wondering about the challenges of democracy, and I have found that from the desire to provide a winning game and what is entailed in that, to the point that one wins. In the Kenyan situation, you seek to erase the memory of those that were before you. And there was a time when there would actually be effort to finish them. So anything associated with them is put aside. We haven't matured in our politics to appreciate the difference between political office and government, so that what is done by government is a Kenyan reality and ought to be stewarded, appreciated, upheld, and possibly improved upon or maintained. When X comes into power, anything associated with Y is put aside and trashed as if it never was anything worth reflecting on. Now, having said that, the kind of warfare that existed in the last 5 years of the last regime does suggest that leadership today is still in war mode, still trying to make a point. You are thinking this is who we are. And we are saying, please, when you have assumed this high office, your very presence is a statement. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to ask anybody, do you know who I am? You don't need to ask those questions. You need to tamper down, actually be very gracious and magnanimous to all those who've been before you. In the laws of perpetual succession, you are responsible for everything that has been done in the past. You can't say, I'm the new managing director, the company is this way, because the people who are here are the ones who did this. If they had any debt, it's your debt. If they had any success, it's your success. The search for votes was to get the privilege to be the leader. And so once you are in office, you have ceased campaign. Appreciate what Kenyans have gained in the last 63 or so years and begin to say, what is my contribution in addition? So the idea of just rubbishing everything so that you start new worries me, because it means should there be a change in another 5 or 10 years, we are going to go through the same thing. Everybody is seeking to tell you, I came and mine was the government. But that's hardly possible. So I'm joining my colleagues in saying, please reduce the warfare because you are now in office. Listen to Kenyans and negotiate the best way of doing things. I appreciate that you only have 4 years left, and you are seeking to make sure that in 4 years you have done very significant things that you can go back to the people with. But do them in such a way that you are not losing any. By its very nature, we use the word optics a lot these days. Popularity today is impacted by very, very shallow optics. The public only has to eat unga at 200 and they are out of you. That's the reality. So to be able to propose that you can you have a long-term agenda that is helpful, requires that you first of all find a good way of how to address these optics, even as you facilitate this progress. So I'm just inviting us to get off this fighting mode and do the leadership in a way that is structured. I mean, this same code, you're going to need it. Really, you're going to need it. So if you rubbish it today, what happens in the days ahead? Where do you go for any level of adjudication? Yeah, so I would say let's tamper down what we are seeing.
All right. Same for station break. When we circle back also, we questioned the Maisha number. I think there was a pilot phase that was being put out there. And there will be 2 parallel registration. Are we registering for Maisha number at the same time with this SHIF? Can this exercise also just be done together? Because that's the question. We are rolling out the Maisha number, there will be registration. Again, now it is HIF. So when you're talking about austerity measures, isn't that now something that we should consider, that we don't have money in the coffers? We take a short break. We're watching Uongozi Today here on Morning Prime.